Welcome to this weekend drive edition of Daily Drive for the third week of July 2026. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, Toyota's Koji Sato wants parts standardization to combat China. The U.S. Justice Department launched a grand jury investigation into UAW President Shaw, and VW CEO Oliver Bloom outlines up to 50,000 more job cuts to hit savings goals. Joining me this week, as always, to break it all down, Michael Martinez, who covers Ford in the UAW for us at Automotive News. Mike, welcome back to Weekend Drive.
Welcome back yourself, Kel.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. And Larry Veliquette, who covers Toyota, Subaru, and Mazda for us. Larry Legend, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Kel. Happy 40th birthday to you.
Thank you. I don't look a day over 30, but I'll take it.
No, you don't. You don't crack at all.
We don't do that. We don't do that at all over here.
No one in Automotive News does, yeah.
No one does. No, not at all. All right, so let's jump right in. Japan's automakers are facing what Toyota's Koji Sato calls a once-in-a-century challenge. And his solution is something most of the industry outside of China hasn't embraced in a big way before: working together. As chairman of Japan's Auto Industry Association, Sato wants rival automakers to standardize common parts like wire harnesses, steel, and plastics to cut costs and improve efficiency. The idea is to free up time and money to invest in technologies and manufacturing needed to compete in a rapidly changing global market. So, Larry, Koji Sato says standardizing commodity parts could dramatically improve productivity and free up investment dollars. Now, could this level of cooperation become a competitive advantage for Japan's automakers, or does it risk making their products too similar?
It could become a competitive advantage. It would still trail China if it did it, because China is already doing this. And I got to tell you, this is not a new idea. This is something that Sergio Marchionne suggested in his Confessions of a Capital Junkie more than a decade ago, to commonize those things that consumers just don't see, like in things like window switches, and as Sato-san mentions, the wire harness. Just doing the wire harness, though, you're talking about a wire harness is a vehicle's central nervous system, and they are custom made for each vehicle because of the way that they have to wrap around and find their way back to this central point to, just like your nerves go back to your spine. This is not something that is going to be standardized easily. It is one of the most expensive and complex components on any vehicle. So they have their work cut out for them.
So, Mike, before I ask you a question, before you hop in, real quick, Larry, is this like vertically integrating without vertically integrating?
No, it'd be more horizontal integrating, right? What Sato-san is talking about is Toyota and Mazda and Subaru and Suzuki and all of those Japanese brands, even the ones that don't come to the United States, calling on separate designs, right? Say, I need a window switch, and I need a pack of 4 window switches. Well, there would only be one set of 4 window switches that everybody would then use. Now, that means that on a per cost basis, even if you had multiple suppliers, you're going to get the absolute lowest cost, because they don't have to worry about development. They don't have to worry about, unless everybody goes up, nobody goes up. They all use that same thing. But it drives down costs. It absolutely maximizes efficiency. But you lose a little bit of the individual taste of the car, a little bit. Hopefully you would do that in stuff that you don't see.
Gotcha. Now, Mike, if Japanese automakers successfully create a shared parts ecosystem, what impact could that have on suppliers, manufacturing costs, and even the broader global auto industry?
Well, on suppliers, it'd have a tough impact, because it would mean maybe you don't need as many to offer as many parts as they do. Manufacturing costs, as Larry said, would take a nosedive, which is a good thing. And in terms of the global auto industry, it would put significantly more pressure on the folks here in the United States to clean up their act and do something. Because this is an idea, as Larry said, that's not necessarily new, but it's honestly about time. somebody takes a serious look at it. I believe our colleague Richard Truitt wrote a column within the past couple of years saying if the Detroit Three really wanted to catch up with China, they would standardize parts. And Larry mentioned it doesn't matter if you have the same part that nobody sees. I'd go a step further. There are some parts you do see as a customer that doesn't need to be different. I've had many discussions on drive programs with other analysts, with folks within the automakers that say, yeah, it's kind of dumb that all the full-size SUVs with a sunroof all have different sunroofs. Like, does anybody really care? It's a piece of glass that goes back and forth. It can be the same thing. You mentioned light switches. You mentioned wiring harnesses, which might be a little tougher, but there's so much and they weigh so much. That's a very sort of low-hanging fruit area for some cost savings. Automakers have collaborated on engines before. The customers don't ultimately care. I have a feeling that you could do more than you think. Standardize it, and people wouldn't care. It's all about competing with China these days and being able to cut development times and cut costs. They are so far ahead of the game in China that everybody else is just trying to play catch up and survive. This would help get them a little bit closer. It wouldn't be the only solution. It wouldn't get them even right away, but it's something the whole industry needs to take a serious look at because there is a lot of waste out there in terms of cost.
Kel, the one thing that holds there is one overriding thing that holds back the manufacturers in the U.S. from doing this, right? Which is antitrust. There would be an antitrust suit within moments of Ford and GM and Stellantis agreeing to common buy common parts. That law does not exist in Japan. That a law that would prevent this. So that's a significant hurdle that we would have to figure out in the U.S. if we were ever to pursue this. The other question that we need to talk about is, okay, it's Team Japan doing this. If Koji Sato is who now heads the Japan Automobile Manufacturers Association, if he could somehow pull this off, that would be one thing. But why should it stop at Japan, right? China's manufacturing capacity threatens, and I know you were down in South America. Maybe you can talk about this. China's manufacturing capacity right now threatens all of the Western and Eastern Hemisphere automakers. All of those other markets, because of what's going on in China, are under threat. We've seen it in Europe. You've seen it in South America firsthand. Right now that we've held off in North America, but that day is coming and everybody realizes it.
Yeah, so for the listeners, Larry's attributing to is that I was just in South America for 2 weeks, and I was there a year ago, and compared to a year ago till now, it's one word, it's spooky. The amount of Chinese EVs that I saw and brands that I'd never even heard of. I mean, every Uber I got into was a Chinese vehicle. They're coming. That's the only way I could describe it, is that it's really spooky. So,
and they were all nice cars, weren't they?
Very nice cars. They're all very, very nice cars. Every car I got into, I did kind of like an inspection. I'm like, let me see if this leather's cheap or if the dash is cheap rubber. No, these were very well built cars. Like, China has come a long way from, as we say, the Temu of cars, but these were really, really nice, very, very well built cars. And like I said, they're coming and they're going to come fast. And it's not a question of if, it's just when at this point.
Look at you, man. You're talking like an industry veteran.
Ooh, look at me. All right. Well, coming up, UAW President Shawn Fain is under investigation by the DOJ and what it may mean for his re-election as UAW president. That's next on Weekend Drive.
Electric vehicle sales have been on a roller coaster, but McKinsey says we'll still see gradual growth in the U.S. This week on Shift, We're digging into the factors that are most influencing consumer demand for EVs.
McKinsey analysts talk about why consumer confidence in EVs improves as the battery range increases.
The McKinsey analysts also talk about the state of charging anxiety and why they think EV customers will look to hybrids and extended range EVs.
Join us for Shift, available this Sunday wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Weekend Drive. I'm Kellen Walker with Michael Martinez and Larry Velaquette. So the Justice Department has reportedly launched a grand jury probe into allegations that UAW President Shawn Fain pressured other union leaders to secure benefits for his fiancée and his sister. Fain denies the allegations, calling them false and politically motivated as the union prepares for the next leadership election. So, Mike, can you explain what's going on and what sort of ramifications this latest scandal could have?
Sure. This is a serious situation for a union that has just been plagued by scandal for well over a decade now. You sort of summed it up well, but essentially 2.5 years ago, Shawn Fain basically demoted two of his top lieutenants. He took away key duties from the Secretary Treasurer, and he took oversight of the Stellantis department away from Rich Boyer, one of his 3 VPs. They said they were unfairly targeted. They went to the Monitor, that court-appointed federal watchdog who is looking over the union because of its corruption scandals. The Monitor found Fain did unfairly retaliate against both Mock and Boyer because they wouldn't do what he said. In Boyer's case, allegedly, what he wanted was for Boyer to grant a bonus for workers at the training center where his fiance happens to work. And he wanted Boyer to personally intervene in a workman's comp claim for his fiance's sister, essentially cut through the red tape. Now, Kel, I want to talk about, everybody's talking about how this could affect the election that's coming up. And yeah, it's gotten nasty. Fain's lashed out really hard. He said Boyer's trying to steal the election from him. He said the Monitor is politically motivated against him. He's using some very Trumpian language, by the way. But I want to talk about the long-term ramifications. It's not something I've heard anybody speak about. And I have a story coming out Monday. So here's a little sneak preview for you guys. The fact that the union continues to be plagued by this infighting and this drama, I don't think people realize they're set to end their period of oversight in January. January 12th, 2027, the Monitor's term ends. But if you read that consent decree, it's a very low bar to extend the Monitor's tenure. It doesn't have to be a lot. It just has to say, essentially, there's good cause and a party has to file a motion and a court would most likely approve it. So the fact that the president's being investigated by the DOJ, the fact that the leadership hasn't implemented all the reforms the Monitors suggested, the fact they're fighting with the Monitor actively, in my mind and in a lot of experts' minds, that gives the government perfect justification to extend the period of federal oversight by a year, by 2 years, maybe even longer. So this could have really, really big ramifications for the UAW.
Larry, with Shawn Fain denying the allegations and pointing to internal political divisions, what impact could this investigation have on the UAW's upcoming leadership election and its relationship with automakers?
Well, as Mike noted, right, you don't want anything to cast even more of a pall over this. I mean, right now the clouds over the UAW are similar to the air quality here in Michigan. Michigan and across the upper Midwest and the East Coast because of the fires in Canada. Same kind of thing. Same kind of pall hangs over the UAW right now. I will just say this: I don't know what Shawn Fain did or didn't do, but abusing one's power as the UAW president to take care of family and friends has a long and glorious history going back in that organization, as Mike wrote about in earnest for many years. And I don't know in this atmosphere whether having an active DOJ investigation might not be termed a badge of honor in some circles, given the DOJ right now. So whether or not, how this plays out long term, we just don't know. If it motivates people to vote one way or the other, that would be a good thing, because the one thing that was really kind of it's pathetic, right? I don't know how else to phrase it. The one thing that was really kind of pathetic about the last election for UAW was the participation of membership, the percentage of participation. It was abysmal. And if this motivates them one way or the other, that's only a good thing.
Guys, can I go a bit off script? I kind of want to put my tinfoil hat on for a second.
Please.
And
go ahead. Yeah, of course.
Maybe talk through a potential scenario with you guys, because the way I see it, and based off the folks I've talked to, sort of the experts in the field, they think it's quite likely that the feds extend the monitor's tenure after January. But there's another option that's out there, sort of the nuclear option, which would be to place the union in receivership, basically complete government control. That's the thing they narrowly avoided in 2020 when they cut the consent decree deal. Now, everybody I talk to says this is really, really unlikely and far-fetched. But in my mind, with my tinfoil hat on, I could totally see a scenario where President Trump catches wind of the fact that the UAW president is being investigated by the DOJ. Now, Trump has shown a willingness, more so than other presidents, to direct his DOJ to do things. The sort of the church and state line between the presidency and Justice Department has blurred, and he likes going after.
That's very kind.
Sure, he likes going after his political enemies. Sean Fain called him a scab in the last election, which is the worst thing a union person can label you. He is not a fan of the president's outside of his tariff policy. So I could totally see a scenario where Trump gets up and says, hey, whether or not there's any evidence or any charges brought against Sean Fain, Trump says, hey, your union boss is a crook. Our Department of Justice is looking at him. Hey, all you auto workers that love me, I love you too. You helped me win the election. I'm going to save the UAW. I'm going to direct the Attorney General or the DOJ to put the UAW into receivership, and I'm going to do what they haven't been able to do. I'm going to clean it up for all you wonderful auto workers in Michigan and Ohio and everywhere else. I think stranger things have happened. Will that happen? We're 10 steps away from anything like that. But I don't know. I can't shake that feeling.
That's, I got to say, Mike, that's actually pretty brilliant.
and
that's, I think you're right. I think that's what's happening.
But again, we do need to be clear that no charges have been brought against Sean Fain. It's not even guaranteed there will be. There's plenty of grand jury investigations that go nowhere and they decide not to charge, that the evidence is insufficient or what. So we're still in that evidence gathering stage right now. But if you play it out 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead, I could see a worst case scenario where this happens. So my rambling point being, yeah, we've talked about the UAW's drama for years. This could really be an inflection point. And I think folks need to pay attention to what happens next.
You spoke with former U.S. attorney and lead prosecutor during the UAW's corruption scandal. What did he have to say about where things stand?
Yeah, Matthew Schneider. A lot of folks who covered the union at the time knows that name. He's now a lawyer at a law firm in Detroit. He said he was disappointed. He's been keeping up with what's happened. He's been keeping up with the monitor's reports. And he said he felt the union should be further along in terms of its reform, in terms of its cooperation with the monitor than it has been. And he thinks the extension of the monitorship is quite likely. And he said he was sort of sad to see it because he worked with then President Rory Gamble to sort of avoid receivership. And he said the goal was that this would be a short thing. 6 years is a long time, but hopefully even before then, they would have everything cleaned up and the government could walk away and the UAW could fully control itself. And he says he doesn't think they're there yet.
Here we go. Hot take, guys. Does Sean Fain win re-election?
I still think yes.
What do you think,
Probably.
Larry? Probably. Do we think that because of participation of the union of people voting and people that actually don't really care? That's like, well, I still got to go to work tomorrow, so I don't really care who's going to be the president. They can put anybody in there, and I still got to go to work tomorrow.
I think it's a combination of the low turnout in the last election and what he has done. What he's done is showing up in the workers' paychecks, and it's showing up in their employment, quite frankly, in some of these plants. And that's
that 2023 contract was not nothing, you know?
Right. At the end of the day, follow the money. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. And finally, Volkswagen is preparing for another major round of cost cutting as CEO Oliver Bloom pushes to reshape the automaker for a more competitive future. Bloom says VW's overhead costs are about 20% higher than its rivals, and closing that gap could mean eliminating as many as 50,000 additional jobs worldwide. The move comes on top of an existing restructuring effort and underscores the pressure traditional automakers face as they navigate slower demand, rising cost, and the transition to new technologies. Now, Larry, you've covered VW for several years. It's already been cutting cost but is now considering another 50,000 job reductions. What does that say about the scale of challenges facing legacy automakers, and how much further could this restructuring go?
Well, we have to understand that VW is unlike any other legacy automaker, right? Because of its quote unquote unique origin story. If you go back to the 1930s, what they have is they are hugely inefficient, right? It takes them an enormously long time to make decisions, to get products to market, to manufacture products. And the fact that they still make money and that they have made money up to this point is nothing short of a miracle, right? Compare them to Toyota, right? Because Volkswagen globally is number 2 for now. They have almost 70% more employees globally than Toyota does. 70%. And Toyota makes more vehicles and sells more vehicles globally than what VW Group is. It is a very large employment scheme that happens to make cars, right? Globally. They could cut easily 150,000 workers and still have more workers than Toyota. So,
wow.
yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
So the fact that Volkswagen, that CEO Oliver Bloom is doing this, this is the right thing to do, but it may not be far enough. They need a dramatic intervention. And some of this, we should note, Bloom is not the first guy to propose job cuts. The last 5 VW CEOs have all said we need to cut jobs, and they ended up either not cutting jobs or adding jobs because of the way VW is structured. It is a unique animal. I don't know if it's even governable anymore. It's had a run of just horrible luck and development over the last 15 years, going back to the Dieselgate. That cost it $38 billion because of what it had done in cheating diesel emissions globally. It had that. It had its Cariad software developed vehicle fiasco. It tried to do these software developed vehicles that just did not work. They were horrible at it. They've abandoned that effort, that internal effort. They've not been very, very efficient at all. And it's starting. They no longer have this volume in China to cover all this inefficiency, right? Decades ago, they were the number one automaker by a lot in China. And as the Chinese automakers have risen, Volkswagen sales have declined. Volkswagen Group sales have declined, and now that's all coming home to roost.
Mike, what are your thoughts?
Larry just mentioned China in China, but also I think to put a bow on this show and what we talked about in the first segment, VW also has to contend with China in Europe now and the rest of the globe. And you're seeing that level of pressure sort of forcing them to look in the mirror and realize they need to get more efficient. So you talk about parts commonization, standardization, maybe VW needs to consider this. You saw this a few years back when they partnered with Ford, particularly on vehicle development, to try to lower manufacturing costs. But I think just the numbers Larry gave are absolutely staggering, and there's no other automaker I think that you can compare that to. But at the same time, they are sort of the prime example of what we're talking about here, where legacy companies are facing pressure because now the volume isn't guaranteed, even in their home markets, because they have a lot more competitors that are coming quickly, often with better products and often with cheaper products. So this is another example of a legacy car maker that needs to get its house in order, or it could face some real trouble.
Now, Larry, as Volkswagen works to lower cost and improve competitiveness, what are the biggest risks of reducing its workforce this aggressively, both for the company and for the broader auto supply chain?
The biggest risk for Volkswagen is domestically in Germany. They have not, because of their management structure, they have not had a war with IG Metall, their largest, one of their giant shareholders, and the union that represents hundreds of thousands of its employees. If they actually went to war with IG Metall, and I'm not even certain that they could, you're looking at potential domestic strife in Germany. That's a far bigger threat to Volkswagen and to Europe, frankly, than whether or not its profitability remains.
Interesting stuff. Mike, Larry, as always, very insightful, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Kel.
Great to have you back, Kel.
That's all for this Weekend Drive edition of Daily Drive. You can get the latest news on Toyota's parts standardization push, UAW President Shaw Fain's DOJ investigation, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoy the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.